shorter than you think. No thing is ever. Longing is the music of our sphere. The gift of life is never more or less. It starts at any time you like and ends in just a wink. Pass me the lighter, baby.
Talofa lava, welcome everybody to the Daily Examiner tonight. We have some very special guests tonight which we would like to bring on. Mel, if she can be on, she will try. Welcome, Mel. You're muted at the moment, so let's try it unmuted.
Oh, how's that? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining tonight. And hopefully my internet will hold out. We've dropped off a few times already, but we'll just roll with it and see how we go.
Oh, that sounds great. We have a lot of discussion to be had tonight around our teachers and around the battle that they've had this past year and just recently. So would you like to introduce them, Mel,
For sure. So I'd like to give a big welcome to Mike, Shaw and Rachael from NZTSOS, New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out with Science. Hi, guys.
Talofa. Kia ora, good evening.
So I think for our viewers, I was thinking that probably the best way to kick off is, Mike, if you want to start, what are you about? What's NZTSOS and what's been going on for you guys? If you want to, just address that, that'd be awesome.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Well, first of all, thank you for giving us some time tonight, and a warm welcome to all your listeners and viewers for the Daily Examiner from the winterless north. And we're saying bring on the global warming. But with that aside, and Rachel, just want to acknowledge Rachel, our chairperson here tonight too. NZTSOS, New Zealand Teachers Speaking Out with Science, formed, would have been October last year, primarily for the purpose of challenging the mandates in the education sector. And we joined with the doctors, NZTSOS, and we went to court in March this year to change, for judicial review at the Supreme Court. Ironically or coincidentally, our court case started the day after the protests ended, and so that was really interesting to be in Wellington at that time. So our membership, we've got over 1,200 members, and they're from all over the education sector, early childhood centres, primary, secondary, board of trustee members, anybody that's involved in education really. And so we went into court in March. It was a 3-day hearing, by memory, March 5th and 6th, the Thursday, the Friday, and then on the Monday. So we could, if you want to, talk a little bit about how that went, and just to get everybody up to speed. Do you want me to?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, because it was a few months ago. So so we went in with the doctors, and the doctors basically they tackled the science side of it, challenging the science of the vaccines and the mandates, and their basic argument was that the mandates don't prevent transmission, and they had some good scientific evidence there to challenge the mandates. Our side of it, we had, I think it was, over 30 affidavits from our members talking about the social impacts and the economic impacts of the mandates, particularly up here in the north and further south in the rural schools. So we were very concerned about the impacts of having teachers lost to the profession and how that was impacting our schools, impacting our students' education. And we went into the court case with real high hopes and expectancy, because our case was strong. And not only was it strong, we'd just had the ruling come back from the New Zealand Defence Force and the police, where the same judge that we were presenting our evidence to, he had ruled in their case that the mandates were a breach of their human rights, and that they were also a breach on religious grounds. So because of how the vaccines had been tested on embryos and that kind of thing. So teachers are clever people, but we could figure out that if it's against the human rights of policemen and defence force, that teachers are humans too, so must be against our human rights. So we were a little, if you recall, we had to wait quite a long time for the ruling to come out, and it seemed to be a long time. And the government, so we had the protest thing. The government, about maybe a month after that, the Prime Minister lifted the mandates in the education sector, left them in the health sector, and then the judge came out with his ruling, and he ruled against us. He ruled that yes, there was a breach of our human rights, but it was a justifiable breach. So we were obviously very disappointed with that ruling, and quite dismayed. And that was quite a setback, because it's just a simple argument really. If it's against the human rights of the police, it must be against the human rights of the teachers. So what we did from that point is we met with our members after licking our wounds a bit and dealing with the disappointment of the ruling. We met together by Zoom, and we discussed whether to appeal the case, and we made a decision to appeal the ruling. which all that basically means, because none of us are lawyers, but basically what that means is that we believe and that there's evidence that the judge actually got it wrong. He made a mistake in his ruling, and an appeal is when you go back into the court and say, well, this is, you got it wrong, and this is how you got it wrong, and you need to correct your judgment. So that was, that was a couple of months ago, and we put the feelers out. The doctors decided they weren't going to appeal, so it was just us, the education sector. I have to say, right out from the bat, that the advice that we got was that under the present political and cultural kind of environment in New Zealand, the chances of winning an appeal in this kind of environment is very, very slim. It's not a high chance. It's not a done deal. It's if you were a betting man, you probably wouldn't put money on us winning. Right. But we felt like the issue's bigger than win or lose. The issue is about keeping this whole issue of human rights in front of the New Zealand public. So that's where we're at. We've engaged a QC, a Queen's Counsel, by the name of Les Taylor, and he's about to start preparing the evidence and preparing our case. And at this rate, if we continue on this path, somewhere in September, we're thinking we'll be back in the Court of Appeal, presenting evidence in front of Justice Cook that he got his ruling wrong. He needs to relook at it, and we're hopeful that he will rule this time in favor of us. So it's now become an issue, not so much like a lot of our teachers have gone back to work. Rachel will speak more into this later, but yes, some of our teachers have gone back to work. Some have left the industry and gone into other things. Yeah, that's the guy. Quite experienced with appeal courts. Some of our teachers have gone back into relieving this. So people have moved on in terms of their life. So this now, where we're at now, is not so much about trying to get our teachers back into employment. It's more about the wider issue of human rights. So, your listeners will know that the New Zealand Bill of Rights says that every New Zealander has the right to refuse medical treatment. And that's it. That's basically our case, because even though the mandates, have been lifted, even though, teachers have gone back to work and that kind of thing, and, we're seeing restrictions kind of eased up a bit, the reality is at any time in the future, this government or any future government, on the advice of one person called the Director General of Health, on that advice, they could, hypothetically, chuck another mandate and say, right, from now on, everybody has to get a flu vaccine, or everybody has to get this or that. And so it's a matter of principle. So we know, even though we're New Zealand teachers speaking out of science, we're not so much just fighting for the teachers. We're fighting for the rights of all New Zealanders. And this is an opportunity now for the whole of people that feel the same way to get in behind this campaign and get behind it and support our appeal, because justice isn't cheap.
Yeah, for sure. But just following on from that, Rachel, are they actually all the schools taking back all the teachers, or are there some schools that are saying, regardless of mandates, what's happening there?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting, because we all got really excited. I know that we had this big announcement from the PM about how the mandates were going to be dropped, but actually what happened was there was a whole bunch of teachers who were very upset with the way that they'd been treated, and I know quite a few people actually went an alternative education or into different avenues. But there's still been, unfortunately, a whole bunch of teachers who have actually been locked out of teaching. There was an article that was published a couple of weeks ago. I worked with the the reporter about it. We spent a couple of weeks looking at this because what happened was NZTSOS was getting a whole bunch of teachers, alerting them to the fact that they were applying for jobs. They were telling the schools in the area that they were ready for relief, they were able for relief, and yet the schools were shutting down or sending home kids on hybrid learning. And we do know that that is still the case, because apparently the Board of Trustees can still decide whether or not to take a vaccinated or unvaccinated teacher. And you only really have to look in the Education Gazette, and you still actually have in the listings some of the job applications say you must be triple vaxxed. The actual Ministry of Education itself, again, it's like the rest of the rules that we currently have in New Zealand. It doesn't make sense. And so, the Ministry of Education, they dropped their mandate about 4 weeks ago. So they had high up a thing where they refused to allow anybody above, in the ministry to work if they didn't have any vaccines. They dropped that, but yet I know teachers are trying to apply to mark NCA at the end of the year at home, and they have been told they must be triple vaccinated. So that's the inconsistencies, and it's actually really heartbreaking, because the worst thing I think in the world is probably having these kids being sent home when they've had such a disruption over the last 2 years. One of the reasons that I actually joined NZTSOS was not only because of the fact that it was hitting so many teachers, but because the impact of what this was actually going to do to our education system, you could see it a mile off. You could see that the teachers who had been having relationships with the kids, we had a lot of really good systems in place, and suddenly we were out, and these kids were all disrupted all over again. And now they're doing the exact same thing. They're sending teachers home, or they're sending kids home when there are actually teachers available to teach the students. So yeah, it's just very frustrating and so very, very wrong. And I would argue, in fact, that we haven't gotten back to normal. We are still dealing with not only teachers, we're still dealing with the whole health system collapse. You see everything happening around us, and all it would take would simply the government to turn around and go, okay, people, let's go back to normal. Let's drop everything. This was not working. It hasn't worked. Let's get life back to normal. But unfortunately, I think she has given permission for everyday New Zealanders to say, hey, let's keep everyone separate.
So my perspective is that each school have the Board of Trustees which decide whether mandates are enforced or not. So the responsibility have gone from the government to the actual schools themselves. So you will find that one school is different from another, and in the way that they are either bringing teachers back, or this is the kind of inconsistency that has really not only rocked the schools itself, but when it filters down to the children, which is I had a program in schools that helped children who were truanting to bring them back. And what I saw just over the last while is actually there's so much disruption, and the kids don't know when somebody's got COVID at school, whether they get locked down, whether they stay home for weeks at a time. This inconsistency has really actually done so much damage to them. And we haven't even started on the fear factor that children have to face. And this is our next generation. This is we as adults. It feels like that we haven't sorted anything out. And so therefore the children, and so this is really important things that you are all fighting for, is actually there are so many inconsistencies within. We've just found out that firefighters and the police prison officers mandates have been dropped. And so we think about this, and we're like, what has actually happened with our education system? What are they actually saying? What are your thoughts, Mel? Are you back? Are you muted at the moment?
Yeah, in and out.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
so I missed that last bit.
Oh no, that's fine. We were just talking about the inconsistencies of the education system, what is happening right now. I just wanted to just actually hand it back to our guests really and ask them what are their thoughts around what is happening with the fear that is really come into play with our schools right now. With our
Can I
children.
just give, sorry, Mike, can I just jump in really? I know you're going to, because I can see you doing it, but I just wanted to jump in and give you guys a really good example. This fear is such a huge factor. I know, and I get that what we've had in the last 2 years has been a very, very sophisticated program of fear, and I don't know that we're going to know the full ramifications of that until years, years in the future. But I've had students that I've taught literally who have been triple jabbed call me up, and these are teenagers, and they are in tears thinking they're dying because they've caught COVID. And a 15-year-old kid shouldn't be completely freaking out because they have a virus. It's just, and she was fine, but she was really, really scared, and this is the problem. It's the fear that seems to be entrenched in all our society now. It's fear of the unvaccinated. It's fear of the virus itself. I've just had somebody tell me that they went into a supermarket today and mentioned that she was a mandated midwife, and one of the ladies walked out and refused to go back into the shop until she actually went out of the shop. She was terrified of catching something from this unvaccinated. It's like, where has our New Zealand gone? Our New Zealand is not the same. It's a completely destroyed. It's heartbreaking.
In terms of the staff members, Rachel works more in the whole area of supporting teachers in their employment and that side of thing. But I've had a little bit of an opportunity to get involved with teachers going back to work, and just to pick up on what you were saying, Leao, with the inconsistencies. So yeah, each school can, if they wish to, put in their own health and safety protocols and various hoops that staff members have to jump through. So that in itself is quite bizarre, because you don't have a maybe there's some sense in having individualized programs, but the cases that I've been involved in, very stressful, a lot of duress put on those staff members coming back in about what things they have to do and don't do, and yet just down the like in another school down the road, there's no restrictions on what they can and can't do in terms of some of the schools are just picking up the unvaccinated staff members and welcoming them back. Other ones is very, very restrictive, very punitive, paranoia, even amongst staff members. So yeah, it's quite crazy, and that must filter down onto the kids, onto our students, and that whole fear and anxiety. I think the real virus, the real pandemic that we're going to have is without being negative, is a whole bunch of mental health issues. So this stuff must impact on our students.
So the graphs that were just put up just now just showed how much of the mental health issues we're actually having in this country. That is actually really worrying and disturbing for all of us to be able to just grapple with how much it's growing. I keep saying, we are the adults. We should be the ones who actually guide our children, instead of them, telling them they have to wear a mask one day, telling them they don't have to wear a mask another day, telling them all of these things that actually really don't make sense in our own minds. So you have teachers that have to adhere to this and come back to school. There is a lot of what I've seen, a lot of division. So much division has on every level, especially for our poor teachers that have been mandated, who are trying to come back and are having a lot of even the feelings in the staff room, or feelings of that's the one that wasn't vaccinated,
Yeah.
kind of whispers. Do you know what I'm saying? that's the one that is, and so that kind of feeling going through the day, and even trying to teach your children must be just must be horrific for them. So I just wanted to ask you, what kind of hope can we give our kids, like, and our teachers? I know that you guys are fighting so much for, as this appeal is going to be very important, not just for teachers, but for people in general. I just wanted to ask, what kind of hope can you give our teachers who are in this situation right now?
I think one of the main messages with the appeal is don't give up the fight. Don't lie down, don't give up, don't back down, and get out onto the battlefield, so as to speak. And I come from a rugby league background, and there were some times when you knew that the opposition was going to test you to the maximum, but you still put on the jersey and you still played the 80 minutes and you still poured your heart into it. And you don't know how the bounce of the ball will go. You don't know how they call it the luck of the day. So that's from a psychological kind of a aspect, I think that's one of the positive thing of the appeal is just encouraging people to speak up and to keep speaking up and to throw it wider. So it's not about the teachers, not just about the teachers anymore. It's about the whole of our society, and whether we really do believe that we have a right to refuse medical treatment. What I really respect about the teachers that are going back into the workforce, because some of them were treated, or many of them were treated really poorly. But what I as a grandfather and a parent, what I really respect about those staff members going back into the schools is they are modelling to students, adults that are able to think for themselves, adults that are able to stand up against tyranny. Yeah. And those are the kind of teachers that we need in our school, not just the ones that toe the line. I don't know if I've expressed that.
I think you have. I think, Mike, there's a lot of them that felt coerced in this situation. A lot of them that are feeling a lot of regret, about this, and so you have to give heart to them as well, because a lot of them just felt like they had no choice. We have never in New Zealand been through this before, and so we come face to face with it. We all make our decisions of what we feel is best at the time, but I see a lot of regret. And I've just there's a couple of questions that have just come up here. One from Catherine, who says, is there a way to operate outside the system? Call away. Are we talking about homeschooling possibly, Catherine, or something around that regard? What are your thoughts?
I think that there is a lot of teachers who have actually found a way to go outside the system. I know that there are people who have started like whole new educational programs, which is really, really exciting. Going back to the hope thing, though, I do personally think that you're 100% right. There is a lot of hope because a lot of the organisations around the country are starting to pull things together that is going to give more hope back to New Zealanders. And I think when we look at NZTSOS, we've got the appeal, but we've also got another court case that we are busy looking at trying to get organised, as well as another few things up our sleeve, which is going to be for not just the teachers who were, this has never been, NZTSOS has never been about just the teachers who were mandated. It was about the teachers who were coerced, the people who had no choice, because what we really stand for is the fact that, we had a lot of that choice and freedoms taken away, and we had to do, people chose what they could based upon the circumstances they had. But I do know if you jump onto our NZTSOS page, where there is usually a lot of chatter from teachers about some of these alternative education things that they are starting to do. So that would be a really good point of call to have a look and just see, because these teachers have found different programs to go around. And I personally think that there is a way where you can work the system and go around the system.
Oh, that's good, Rachel. That gives hope in itself.
Yeah.
I've got just a general question. Sorry, now, why is the government so keen in destroying this country? That can come from any one of you. Nothing they have done makes sense. Thank you, Donna. That is actually a really important question.
Mm.
I personally think you're 100% right that it feels like the government is very hell-bent on destroying this country. I agree. We have a shambles in every sector and it's just not getting any better. I've just been talking to some of the nurses and the ones that are looking at being mandated out with our health sector already in crisis. The logic, this is the thing, the logic behind any of this is just unbelievable. It hasn't become about mandate or vaccine or anything anymore. It's now become about government overreach. It's fingers on every part of our lives, and I think it's going to come to the point where we as a collective, as a nation, have got to stand up and say that this is not right, because it's just going to keep on going.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting that everyone sort of had this feeling like, okay, COVID's coming to the end, okay, so not everyone's being mandated, things are going back to normal, and now we've got bananas and pajamas, what is it, B1, B2, B5, B whatever, all these variants coming out. Is there actually, I mean, do you guys feel like, well, first of all, you're making a real big stand, because there is a possibility we could go back into red anytime soon. It seems like mainstream media are starting to push these new variants. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yep, well, that's you're spot on, Mel. It's a false complacency that has been building. When the PM says the mandates have been lifted here or the mandates have been lifted here, and you don't forget she said that she's still got all those tools in her back pocket, I think is the word she used, and we really don't know what World Health Organization is going to announce, from week to week, and what next variant, what next disease is out there. And so while this law and this precedent is still in place, it gives the government, I think you used the word overreach, far too much power is centralized on one or two people who can make decisions to inject whole sections of our society. So this time's it's been the teachers and the doctors and all that kind of stuff, but who knows who'll be next time. And that's why we need to get down to the fundamental issue of human rights. That's the fundamental thing here is, and that's our whole thing with the appeal is to the public of New Zealand and to those watching tonight. Do you believe that you have the right to refuse medical treatment? If you do, then you need to get in behind this campaign, and we need to buy. This is just one avenue. Like, so the appeal process is just one avenue, but there's other avenues. Rachel's mentioned some of them, that we can keep educating our country about these issues. Otherwise, we'll just go to sleep. We tend to be apathetic. We'll go to sleep and think, oh, everything's all good, and we up in the Northland where I live, we don't want fluoride in our water, and we thought that was a big deal. Fluoride in the water, that's no big deal compared to what we're facing now.
So, Mike, how can we support? I know that your court cases will be costing a lot of money with the lawyers. It's been lawyers' field day. This is the time to be a lawyer, right?
It is, yeah. It is. We're thankful that Les Taylor, I think you put him up there on the screen a minute ago. He has discounted his fee to some extent. I forget how much, but he's not charging what he normally would charge. But still, it's a big bill. We're looking at a $80,000 bill, which is a bit less than some of the other groups that are currently in court as well. But the reality is the main thrust, the main way people can, in a way, this is like a referendum. The main way that people can vote against the mandates is by making a donation to our Give a Little page of $20 or $50 or whatever they can afford. And that's a very practical way of actually making their voice heard, and getting them behind the campaign. There's not a lot we can do in the terms of, because we've got some pretty clever people on board, but we have to let the lawyers do their work and keep in our own lane, and not try and tell them too much how to do their job. Have a bit of faith in them. So the main way that people can support is actually, like literally dipping into their pockets. I know there's a lot of things going on at the moment, and there's a bit of donor fatigue out there. Everybody wants some money, but the other thing is, if you can't actually you can't give any money, you can spread the word. I think on our Give a Little page, there's a button where you can share it to your Facebook or share it, email it around, that kind of thing. So that's the way really people can. And I think too, I don't want to hog the airways tonight, but is to not let your friends go to sleep, in the terms of not let them get too relaxed about it, and realize that the law hasn't changed, and that they can still bring the mandates back in any time they want. So
add to that whole not going to sleep, because one thing that we're looking at with this new court case, because we've got the old court case and we've got one that we're joining with professionals, which is the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters. I mean, we want a whole professional group to basically go in and take them for health and safety, because the problem is the fact that our health and safety, a lot of the protocols have been breached. And I just want to make people aware that when you guys are actually signing a contract now, when we all had our contracts before pre-COVID, there was the way where we had no contract or no thing under health and safety saying that we had to accept any of these jabs, like for anything. We didn't have to get the flu jab. We didn't have to do anything. But I know for a fact that some of the businesses are bringing in under the Health and Safety Act in your contracts that you are going to have to get whatever jab that they're going to tell you to get. So we need to be awake. We need to be awake. We need to go back into court time and time again. We need to fight against this whole human rights thing, because we're going to be on a hamster wheel for the rest of our lives unless we actually make a stand and draw that line in the sand. If we don't draw that line, it's just, tomorrow it's going to be monkeypox, or it's going to be whatever else they're telling us that we have to do. So just be aware of that. And there are things in place.
I think you're right, Rachel. What I see as well is they have an expert that comes along, one health expert who determines this is what's going to happen. I can't understand how we have just one epidemiologist in the whole of New Zealand dictating to us what they feel is going to happen. It's like the end time prophets who go, this is what's going to happen. And has any of their things actually come true? I mean, people need to look back and go, but you know how you said there was going to be 10,000 deaths, and nearly everybody has died with COVID, so this continues and people get more and more fearful. And so you're right. All of us know deep down in our hearts, this gut feeling that this hasn't stopped. We may have had a lull for just a moment, but we feel it. We can feel it. We can feel it starting to bubble up again. So do we just go, we'll just wait for the next time they drop the mandates? Or do we just go, this is enough? We've had enough. We have our own sovereignty. We have our own, we have the right to be humans. Next minute, they're gonna tax us for breathing New Zealand air. Sorry, Brent.
Yeah,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what we don't want, we've already been through a position as Kiwis where we got to this whole, oh my gosh, how did we get here? We don't want to be going down that track again. I mean, you've seen how the government react to situations. They're not going to change. It's not going to be some miraculous, oh no, everything's perfect anymore. You've got to look at their track record, and it hasn't been good so far, and it certainly hasn't been good for the people. But my other question was, what is the time frame with what you guys are going through at the moment? Are you looking at years or months or yeah?
Well, in terms of the appeal, probably end of this month is when the QC starts putting it together for the court, and then our rough time frame is September. End of September, we will know whether the appeal is successful or not. And but as Rachel has pointed out, running parallel or sort of just behind this is another court case that we're in talks with other professions, and that's sort of just bubbling away under the surface at the moment, getting ready. But in terms of the appeal, the actual appeal itself, I would say that by September, we will have end of September we'll have an outcome. We will know. So that just because most of the people here listening tonight are like everyone on the panel here. We're not lawyers, and so to put it in I like to break it down and get people to explain it to me in layman's terms. What we're saying is Justice Cook got it wrong. We're saying he simply just got it wrong. He made a mistake, and then we're employing the QC to show him this is how you got it wrong. You didn't consider this, you didn't consider that, and you actually got, you got that mixed up, and this is why you're wrong. So we so there's a possibility that he says, oh yeah, I got it wrong, and he reverses his decision, which is what an appeal is about. So we will know by the end of September as to whether that's successful or not, and then moving on to that will be some other actions. But the goal is the overall arching goal is human rights, getting getting this issue of bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
If we're talking about freedom and democracy and all that kind of thing, if you don't own your own body, what do you own? So kind of ironic, with the Roe versus Wade thing. And I know we don't want to get into that tonight, but it's ironic that people are crying out, "My body, my choice," and there's mixed feelings about that. But when it comes to vaccination, it's our body, our choice. Who has a right to tell you that you got to get your kids jabbed? That kind of stuff. Now, just to say too, is we're not anti-vaccination. Many of our members are actually vaccinated. What we are is we're anti-government overreach. We're anti-people being treated as lepers. We're anti-segregation, all that, people being barred, all that kind of stuff.
And to be fair, the organisation with the NZTSOS, I mean, we started this because of what started, and it grew. And there are a lot of other groups out there, like the New Zealand Doctors, and other groups, And I think that for us, we're just going to have to keep on fighting until because you've not only got these court cases happening and the fact that they got it wrong, and we're going into the appeal, but we've got vaccine injured teachers, we've got vaccine injured nurses, we've got how long are we going to keep on fighting? I think we have to keep on fighting until the government gets it right and acknowledges. I mean, my big thing is that I think they need to acknowledge the pain that they've caused. They need to acknowledge it and actually try and put it right. And until that happens, I mean, I'm prepared to keep on fighting, and I know all of you are prepared to keep on fighting. I just don't know how long it will take, but we have to keep on fighting.
And my ideas, as what I've seen in the past 2 years, is that it's been a long game. So we've only just our eyes have just been open to this reality that, oh my goodness, our government is actually not for us, and it's hard to take. It's hard to comprehend that me being in New Zealand, that this would be like, we would be like this. We had at the beginning of this to be kind, and actually there's been no kindness at all. And we think about our teachers again, back to what you said, Mike, is around when that judgment came, it wasn't just to one person. You weren't just saying, oh, look, he got it wrong for hundreds and thousands of teachers throughout the whole country. This is not just an apology. I'm sorry, I got this wrong for this one person. This is for everyone, and not only that, is all the children that come under these teachers, and it carries on and on. So, a real humbling from this judge, which would be amazing,
Yeah.
to just say, actually, you know what, it's time to think about our moko, time to think about our children, our future generation. Let's just get this right and let this, get this going.
Mm. Yep.
So, any words of wisdom to everyone before we sign off? Like, yeah, just feel free to have a spiel and let everyone know again where they can get any information. Mike?
Yeah, maybe a few closing thoughts is, like many of us were in Wellington in March on that Wednesday, and we saw that our government was not prepared to listen to a peaceful protest, and that was very disheartening for people there to see the brutality of the state coming down upon them, and the enforcement of the government's will without listening to the people. And so, yeah, we want to say, tonight, don't give up, don't get disheartened, don't turn to violence, don't turn to apathy or cynicism or depression or any of those things, but keep on fighting and use every avenue possible. So, we're currently taking the legal avenue of the appeal process, but there'll be other things that people can do. But just keep standing, keep speaking out the truth, keep supporting and encouraging one another, and be, it kind of sounds a little trite, but be kind to one another. And when we see other people losing the plot and getting nasty, we don't need to behave like that. We can react in kindness and react with understanding, because people are afraid. They've been brainwashed, they've been programmed to think a certain way, and that their government narrative is just so strong. So that would be my final things. Yes, get them behind. So yes, sounds like the farmer, get them behind. But, yeah, come and support us, because we're not doing it for us, we're doing it for New Zealand.
Yeah, it's really good.
Awesome. And Rachel?
I guess probably the only thing I really want to say is that we have a lot of stuff that is going to be coming up, and we would love to have people on this journey with us. So we do have our office at nztsos.org.nz just to join. We have a Facebook page. We are currently getting a website up and running so that we can kind of do that. But I personally think that New Zealand, we've mentioned the kindness before. I think that deep down, we haven't lost what New Zealand is. New Zealand has always been a country with araha, and I just think it's just sitting there waiting, but it's got to be to a point where people are not scared anymore and they need to stand up. And even if you don't believe, or people don't believe in the whole mandates or the vaccines, or they do believe in the vaccines, I think we all have to be very concerned about the overreach of the government and where this is headed. And really the only way that we're going to get through this is to work together and actually fight it, and stay strong, because New Zealanders, we are strong people. We are trailblazers, and we can show the world. We can actually show the world what this should look like, and come out of this complete chaos and like a phoenix. But we all just have to stick together. And so, please feel free to join us, and just keep tabs on what we're doing, and contact us if you need to. I just think it'd be wonderful to hear from people.
Yeah.
I feel that we should just Mel, that we will keep up to date with them, and to bring them back on to the show, and just keep tabs on you and how you're doing, and what appeals that you need to have from the public. We will keep talking about this. We will keep spreading what needs to be done in order for us to bring back out who we are as New Zealanders. We've always had this. Thank you, Rachel. We can be gutsy. We can stand up. We can turn off our TV and walk outside. We don't have to listen to mainstream media. We can actually think for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to really applaud you guys for what you're doing, and really acknowledge the fact that it's not just about teachers. It's not just about the doctors with the doctors. It's about New Zealand and standing up for human rights, and that is so important. And that's a really big battle. So yeah, we just really lift you guys up and honour you for what you're doing. Big thanks from us. Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, anytime. Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, we'll sign off there, and thank you again, everyone, for tuning in tonight. And we look forward to keeping you all updated with the progress with NZTSOS as they venture forward. Thank you, everyone. Good night. God bless.
Ka kite.